Hey everyone, today I am in Brighton, Colorado at the Elmwood Cemetery, and we're here to see one grave, which is Lloyd William Barker. There's kind of a problem with that. So this cemetery marks the sections by these kind of blocks right here like this. And I can see that this was recently painted, and there's some others over there that's kind of like a maintenance shack area. The office of the cemetery is up over on that side, actually. It's somewhere over there. But these markers like this on the other side of the cemetery are clearly marked saying section 21 or whatever. The section we're looking for is section 6, which I'm not entirely sure if I'm in the right section or not. There's no map. Right over there is the office. I see it now. There's no map outside of the office. I'm here after hours. The office is closed. But if you look on Find a Grave, someone made a post in 2009 stating that this is the section 6 that he's buried in, almost like as if they couldn't find the marker. They have this same exact shot from this same exact angle saying that this is section 6. Later on in 2017, I see that someone made a post and they have a funeral home marker that's clearly been updated. It put something else inside of that funeral home marker. And I also see that funeral home marker is kind of in front of a piece of cement. I have scoured this section right here, this whole section where the road surrounds it and it curves all around. I've went over there. I have even went in this section here and even in the middle section over there thinking, well, maybe they just took this because it was an easy reference. Although that mausoleum would have been a lot better. I even scoured that section over there and this section over here. And sadly, I cannot find anything at all. But I will go ahead and tell his story. That way I'm not keeping you in suspense, but I want to show you some things about this cemetery after I tell his story. Lloyd William Barker, aka Red, was born in Aurora, Missouri, and his date of birth, at least according to Find a Grave, is March 16th, 1898. However, I was able to find a draft card for World War II, and it states that his year of birth is 1897. What we do know as a fact is that his date of death is March 18th, 1949. Lloyd Barker was the son of American gangster Ma Barker and one of the notorious Barker boys. He and his 4 brothers, George, Herman, Arthur, aka Doc, and Fred, began their crime careers as members of the Central Park Mob in Tulsa, Oklahoma. During the height of their criminal activities of the Barker gang, Red was incarcerated in Leavenworth Penitentiary in 1922. He was sentenced to 25 years for a mail robbery in Baxter Springs, Kansas. During World War II, he joined the U.S. Army and worked as a cook in a prisoner of war camp, which was at Fort Custer, Michigan. This was his second stint in the Army, as he served during World War I as a cook as well. He earned a Good Conduct ribbon and was honorably discharged from the Army following World War II. At the time of his death, he was an assistant manager at the DeMargo Grill in Pueblo, Colorado. Red had been living with his common-law wife, Jean, before they were married in February of 1949. Jean had 2 children before they were married from a previous marriage, and 2 more with Red named Eileen and Michael. According to Jean, on March 18, 1949, she asked her husband to come home from work to help care for their children. Jean shot and killed Red as he was entering their residence at 3425 West 73rd Avenue in Westminster, Colorado. Jean was tried for the murder and claimed that she was afraid that her husband was going to kill her and the children, as he had threatened to do so before. Jean pled not guilty by reason of insanity and was sentenced to life at Colorado State Insane Asylum in Pueblo, Colorado. Now, doing a little bit more research on this guy, I could see that the memorial marker was a funeral home marker, but it's on 2 different Find a Grave memorials. He is for sure buried here in Colorado, but after you look on Find a Grave, you'll see the same funeral home marker that's in Welch, Oklahoma in a cemetery. I don't know why someone uploaded it to both sites. It had me looking all over the place in this cemetery. But what we are going to do is sometime soon in an upcoming episode is we're going to head to Welch, Oklahoma. We're going to check out that cemetery and see what all is there. I've been there years ago. Of course, that was before YouTube, so I've forgotten all about what is in that cemetery, and I don't remember this being there. But sometime soon, we'll check it out and we'll view it together. So if you've stuck around through that, I just kind of wanted to show you a couple things in the cemetery. If I show you this angle right here, you can clearly see these are sunk in a little bit. So you can see this cemetery is in need of a little bit of care, a little bit of dirt. As I was walking the cemetery, I literally almost sank in a grave. I'm talking a foot down. So this is a very dangerous cemetery to walk through in certain spots. This one isn't quite so bad. I can't even remember where it was, somewhere over through there where I almost sank a foot. But it does need some dirt to fill in areas. And maybe I want to give the benefit of the doubt that maybe this cemetery was bought out by another company, or maybe it was sort of abandoned for a lot of years. I'm not sure, but a new company has maybe taken over and they're trying to do some work. I see some flags in some areas. I do see patches of grass, and like this little tree over there is a new tree that they've planted. But somebody has not taken the best care in the cemetery, and I say it because of this. They've clearly planted a new tree here and yanked up the old one, but they knocked over this marker right here. I don't understand why they wouldn't move the marker ahead of time. Maybe they thought that it wasn't really going to pull anything out and knock anything over. I'm not sure. But in a few cases, it looks like in the process they've knocked over markers and cracked it. And that's kind of where I have a little bit of a problem and would like answers, although I can't get answers. I'm not from this area. You can clearly see where this has been knocked over. And they pulled another tree out there. And a lot of the markers are leaning and need a little bit of straightening. And like I said, it could just be from them not having maintenance on the cemetery for a long time. And you can see where this sinks down in there. The actual marker is sunk down, but this sinks down. You can see the little indentions, and throughout the cemetery, there are indentions where there are no markers. And like I said, I was looking for a piece of cement, and I see markers throughout the cemetery, and they're just covered up by dirt and grass. There's no telling how many are in this cemetery like that. There could be tons. And that could be how Mr. Barker's marker is. But if they don't straighten some of these, they're gonna fall and it's gonna cause more damage. It could hurt a person, it could hurt the maintenance worker, but it could certainly damage the marker at the very least. Let me take you over to this section here. Now this cemetery has all the standard European names, stuff like that, but it also has a high percentage of Hispanic names, and there's also a large portion of what I think is Japanese names throughout the cemetery. You can see the writing, and then it's also spelled out in English. This one right here is the one that really caught my eye at first. Just walking around looking for Mr. Barker's grave. They pulled this tree up, that's fine. They've got other little stumps in the area, and I get that they're hard to pull up. You could leave the stumps, but pulling up something that big actually kind of sort of disturbs the grave. As you can see here, it has pulled the base off to the side like that. And then you have this middle part here. And then you have this marker here. And the name is Carl Moeller. And Looks like 1894. It's just kind of sad to see it that way. We have Emma right here, and she is covered up now. And I don't know if there's others that are covered up, you know. There's a row right there. And I also get that the tree could have swallowed some of the markers. I also get that they could have had storm damage, and maybe the tree fell on some markers right here, or was going to fall on some other markers, so they wanted to prevent that. Just seems like they maybe should have moved the markers, maybe took pictures of where those markers are supposed to go, and then placed them back where they were. But I don't know how you pull a tree up that size without disturbing the actual grave below. Now there are pieces of cement in here, and I can't quite tell if there's something missing from the trees that have been taken down, or if they are Mr. Barker's or not. As I look on the Find a Grave site, the picture that I do see with the kind of funeral home temporary marker is a little different. So I'm not sure where he's at. But we're just going to assume that he's in this section like we see on Find a Grave, where someone has probably done more research and is of the area. But other than that, it's not a bad cemetery. You can obviously see where they've mowed the cemetery, and it's semi-green, so I'm assuming that they water it. It's just some maintenance that needs to be done. And I'd like to think that maybe the funeral home or the cemetery association or whatever it is maybe just took over this and is doing some work, because they are painting those things right there. They are planting new trees, and I can see patches of grass that they've also installed in certain areas. But I sure would like some answers on that. And it's sad that some of the graves are covered up. And I know that Mr. Barker was a criminal, but he did try to turn his life around. And this is just a regular cemetery, so I do believe that he deserves something here. I'm not a resident of here, so I can't find out the answers. So if any of you are from Brighton, Colorado, maybe you can get the answers. Or maybe you know the answers already, and you can chime in with a comment below. Try not to be critical of it, but it's very hard when you see things like that in a cemetery. And these sections right through here are a lot thinner. But when you look at these areas over there, and more so over in that side of the cemetery towards the office, they are super packed, and it is still an active cemetery. So I know the money's coming in to fix things. Here's an example of one of the Japanese ones, and those are throughout the cemetery. Large ones, nice ones. But I hate for that kind of stuff to happen over there. Of course, the trees in those areas are much smaller, and since this is called Elmwood Cemetery, I'm assuming that those large trees were probably elmwoods. I don't know. Well, thank you for joining me on this little cemetery adventure, and I know it turned into sort of a rant, but we put a little history in there for you. Wanted to tell his story because it is sort of a weird, unique story. Ties in with some of the graves that are in Oklahoma, which I will be covering soon. And I wanted to share this story and figure out if we can get some answers on some of the graves and some of the maintenance within the cemetery, and maybe whether or not the cemetery association or the funeral home or whoever's responsible for this cemetery has just taken over and is trying to correct some neglect maybe. So if you know an answer to that, or know somebody that maybe has a connection with the cemetery, maybe they can find out for us. Because in addition to that, I know they got to take down decorations, but you just see them piled up near trees. And the other disturbing part is there's flags just piled up in a pile next to trees, which kind of disgraceful to some of the veterans in here. And I didn't even dive into that some of the veterans in here look like they've passed away during times of conflict, because I did see some of those. No flags in front of them, and those flags that are piled up or near. I don't know, kind of bothers me. But thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you can get some answers for me and for us, all of the viewers. And just leave that in a comment below if you can. Thanks for watching. and we'll see you guys next time.